Hello everybody, welcome to this video of myself and Mr. Simon.
Hello
Bates.
indeed, yes.
And we're here for a big one. This is an important video. It may get a little bit longer, but it's about the five best first professional level saxophones, I would call these.
Okay, yeah.
So this is a very, very popular marketplace in the shop and people buying online. And we're looking at the Yamaha YAS-62, the Yanagisawa AWO1, the Selmer Axos, the Cannonball A4, and the Eastman EAS-652. So these five are commonly looked at for people upgrading from a student or intermediate horn. £2,000 to £3,000 is the price bracket of all of these. And nowadays there are plenty of things above that, as we know.
Indeed, yeah.
But actually for many years this kind of was the pro level, and we'll come to that in a minute when we talk about the 62 perhaps. So what we're going to do, Simon's obviously here to give us his chops and his opinion. And we're going to go through each model. Simon's going to have a good play, test the saxophone, you can hear it, and then we'll have a little chat about it, and then we'll go on to the next one. So we're going to start with the classic, the Yamaha 62, still the one out of all of these that we sell the most of.
Okay.
So that's the
I'm not
first
surprised,
fact out of the box.
Yes.
There's lots of reasons for that. But let's have a blow, see what we think. So you are someone who's played a multitude of 62s.
I have.
What is it about them that you think might make them so popular?
They work. I think that's the thing. They're a good, and don't get me wrong, you know, when I use this word, they're a good workhorse saxophone. You want something as a professional player or any player that works, and this is an example of a saxophone that just does exactly what you expect it to do. There's some lovely little features on this as well that you don't get on more expensive instruments. The little screw adjusters for the keys. I've never understood why they didn't put those on the custom. That didn't seem to make sense because it's just a, you know, if you want to make a little adjustment,
Quick and easy.
Quick and easy and great to do. Just a, you know, an all-round good workhorse. Fantastic horn. There's a lot of professional players who use these still. You know, as you say, Dave Cos. I know. In fact, when the custom was launched, I won't name him, but their French ambassadeur de saxophone actually used a 62 and told everybody that it was an 875 because he preferred the 62.
Inside story. Well, the 62s have been around since 1978. And I can legitimately say, do you remember that, Simon?
Sadly, yes, I do.
Thankfully, I do not. I was nothing but a glint in the milkman's eye. But the 62 came out in 1978. So if you think about longevity here for that just one model, I mean, that's amazing. The Selmer Series 2 was 86. So, you know, the 62 has been around a very long time. Now, it's had various iterations.
Yes.
They've had changes on the neck. They've changed a bit of how the bow to bell goes together, a little bit on the layout, some of the screws, like Simon's been saying. The current neck is what they call the 62 neck and is a little bit more narrow than the older G1 necks. And I think Yamaha did that to just contain the sound a little, make the intonation even easier, shall we say. And maybe then if you want something a bit more go or a bit wilder, then you go up to the Ace2Z with the nice V1 neck, which is a bit more
although you can upgrade the neck on these, can't you?
That's another great point.
There are separate necks available.
Yes, so in the Yamaha range from the 480 up, so the 480 62 up, you can use any of the custom necks as a buy-on. And we've done a separate video going through all of those necks as well. So it is available in silver plate, but we sell 95% of the time is the lacquer one. Very occasionally they do special edition ones, but fundamentally this is the core Yamaha 62. And if you are upgrading, you want to buy a decent pro level horn without going crazy on price, I would say at least this is the thing you need to compare other things against.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can get to somewhere and try them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, compared to the customs, you can tell there are some corners cut, but then, you know, the customs are another $2,000 more, aren't they? So
and that's mostly elements of hand involvement, isn't it?
Indeed,
maybe
the engraving is not quite as intricate, and you know, so the bell to body stay isn't quite as pretty and things like that. But you know, I don't think that's a problem really. They're good all-round saxophones. The keywork is very Yamaha and very ergonomic, very friendly. You know, my fingers definitely just go in the right place.
Yeah.
When I play this, so yeah, I love the 62. I think it's a great horn.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm hugging this case because we did want to show you, obviously this is for people if you're wanting to upgrade, it's nice to see the overall outfit. I'm always slightly loath to show cases and things in videos because manufacturers change them and then it's out of date and all the rest of it. But we are going to do that today. And it comes with a 4C mouthpiece. Now, the whole thing about what mouthpiece you get with the upgrades, commonly we would advise you to buy a better mouthpiece anyway, and you might already have done that and then be coming to this later. But Yamaha do at least give you a 4C, which is a good, you know, basic sort of mouthpiece to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we're going to move on, and we're going to stay in Japan in terms of country of origin because the 62 is made in Japan. We're going to go over to Yanagisawa and we're going to look at their AWO1, which is the direct competitor, shall we say, to the Yamaha 62, and we'll be right back with that in just a second. And there we go, everybody. That's the Yanagisawa AWO1.
It is indeed.
So I just made, well, first impressions.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I've always thought Yanagisawa saxophones are a little bit more delicate than Yamaha, but they do seem to have a good core sound that you know, for me over the years has improved. You know, I like the brightness. It's helped by the fact that, you know, you've got all brass rather than any plastic, you know, sort of on the thumb rest of the back button and that sort of thing. It's a very nice looking saxophone. I mean, if I'm honest, the keywork isn't quite as comfortable for me as the 62, but then I play Yamaha, so you know I'm probably going to probably going to say that you know it's the familiarity thing rather than the fact that this is no good. You know, but it does. Do you know what I mean? I want the keys to be in a slightly different place for me, but that's not necessarily a thing that's going to affect any other player.
No, I think some smaller-handed people prefer the Yanagisawa layout. So it does depend a little bit on your. Obviously, Simon's got quite big hands. Look at those, 10 bananas. But so yeah, if you're struggling a little bit with reach, the Yanagisawa is usually pretty good for that. I think sound-wise, yeah, I mean, it sounded great from here, quite lively, quite vibrant, the O1. And I think what you mentioned about the sound maybe improving, when they brought this version out, the AWO1, they took over from the old 901, so that whole 90 series was overtaken. And they did improve a little bit, especially around the left-hand palm keys, to just give the top a little bit more solidity, where it tended to go a little bit thin and a little bit bright, maybe.
Absolutely. That's yeah. I think that's a really important thing to point out. That you know the core of the sound is there, and it's a lot more even than it used to be with the Yanagisawas, I think.
Yeah. No, I think that change was definitely good. So for people who are upgrading, often they do try the Yamaha and the Yanagisawa back to back. Sometimes people ask, well, which is best? Well, there isn't really an answer. And I say that really because mechanically the Yanagisawas are excellent, just like the Yamahas and like a lot of things we're going to talk about today. Reliability-wise, they're very good, just like the Yamaha. Again, that's the Japanese thing. And spares are available. It'll be worth something in the future. You know, all the boring stuff, which actually becomes not boring 3 to 5 years later when you need it, is worth thinking about. The case is also quite smart. I know you're only going to be able to see a limited amount here, but it does have a backpackable strap on for either side. Obviously, both
Yamaha has that as well, isn't it?
I believe it does. Yeah. Yes. So
it's a good addition.
Nice and solid. And Yanagisawa do give you, and maybe this is a slight edge on the Yamaha. They give you a number 6 hard rubber ebonite mouthpiece with a nice ligature and cap. So I would say that's a step up from the plastic 4C that Yamaha give you.
Yeah, possibly.
But are you going to be using the one that comes with it, or are you going to be using the one you already have? And are you paying a bit more for the outfit because it has a more expensive mouthpiece? So it sort of swings and roundabouts.
Swings and roundabouts.
A little bit there, yeah. So we're going to move on though, and we're going to go pan-European. We're going to go over to Selmer in France, and we're going to look at their Axos, which came out probably 8 or so years ago now, and again landed right in this very busy marketplace because Selmer knew there was some action there,
Yes.
and their professional top-level ones were over that price-wise. So let's dive into the Axos, and we'll hear that, and we'll get Simon's thoughts on that as well.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, he's not sure. Let him gather his thoughts. I hopefully have my thoughts gathered already. This is the Axos, obviously from Selmer, and it came out a few years ago, like I say, 7 or 8 years ago now. It's been around and selling fairly well in that time period. Typical Selmer, it's not always easy to get. They probably don't make quite enough of them still, so we're often waiting to get stock in, so that can prove a problem. And I think that's actually impacted the sales of it, because obviously it's not here, we can't sell it. However, it did come into quite a busy marketplace with the Yamaha Yanagisawa and all the other things, especially that we're looking at today. And also it's from a very well-known lineage of Series 2, Series 3, reference, all the other Selmer things. But before we get into the model types, maybe, what's your first impressions from a playing point of view?
Yeah, look, it's got a nice bright sound. I expected bigger Selmer for it to have a little bit more warmth, but you know, I mean, it's got a good presence to it. For me, the real downside is the keywork. You know, it doesn't suit me at all. You probably noticed at the end of the video there, I was going up to play an E and I couldn't find it. You know,
it's in there somewhere.
And the same with the E flat here. You know, it's too close. But again, this is personal preference. I'm not saying that this is no good because the keywork is rubbish. I'm just saying it's something that doesn't suit me.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't persuade anybody against buying one of these because of the keywork. But definitely, it's not a very comfortable saxophone for me to play.
Maybe like we were saying with the Yanni, perhaps those smaller hands feel a bit more comfortable around.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, you know, it seems to me that possibly what they're aiming at is, you know, a market of an upgrade market for children and students. I don't know. It's an odd one because you know these aren't cheap instruments. They are cheaper than you know the Supremes and that sort of thing. But you know, even so, I'm just. I don't know, there's something about the keywork that just feels really, really uncomfortable for me.
Okay, he wanted more, and he didn't get it.
I mean, you know, I just wonder if it's a model that Selmer don't need, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talk about the models because for a few years, until right now, we're recording this in September, October 2023, there was probably too many Selmer models. They had the 2, the 3, the Axos, the reference, then the Supreme came along, and it was all a bit of a medley. They have now simplified things significantly to the Axos as the first, the Signature as the main pro one, and then the Supreme as the sort of flagship, which there's not many around. You know, they're kind of like hen's teeth to find. So I know what you mean. But if I was Selmer and I saw how many Yamaha 62s and Yanagisawas were selling, I'd want to be in that market.
It's a commercial decision. I mean, I liken it to the Jaguar thing of, you know, in the olden days, Jaguar used to have a saloon car and a sports car, and that was it. And now, you know, they've got saloon cars, 2 models of saloon cars, they've got 4-wheel drives, they've got sports cars, they've got all sorts of stuff.
Electric,
and it seems to be, you know, a little bit unnecessary because it's a market that other people have got covered. With Selmer, you know, they had the Mark 7, the Mark 6, balanced action, the super balanced action. There was kind of one model that they made, and they were specialists in that. And they made, you know, they made the best saxophones of the time. So I wonder if this diversification isn't quite the way to go, but you know, hey, I'm just a player. Well, I think global market wise, it does make sense in some ways because certain markets, certain price points are more popular and they might have limits or whatever. But we don't want to get dragged into that on this video. I think if you're looking at upgrading and you can get to a store to try, especially if you can get to Dorks, that's even better. Do try the Selmer against the Yamaha and the Yanagisawa. Yeah, I mean, look, sorry, I've been very negative about it, but you may absolutely love it. I don't hate it. No. You know, it's just that I'm being, I guess, critical about 5 saxophones that we're trying. Yeah. You know, and
we've got to give some difference.
Personally, it's not the best.
No, fine.
But then, you know, that's just me. You might go, wow, you're totally wrong.
Yeah, I often think that. No, I'm joking. No, good. All right, well, we're going to move on, and we're going to go to the Cannonball next, and this is the A4 Cannonball, which only came out 2.5 years ago, something like that. And we sell a lot of these for various reasons, but we're going to come to those next. There we go, everybody. So that's the Cannonball A4. This is available in 3 finishes, the gold lacquer, a black, and an unlacquered, they call it a Mad Meg, which kind of has a very unlacquered look to it. I would say just a little bit of tech before I throw to you, Simon. It has the big bell of the A5, which is their professional model. And this is kind of like a little brother version of that because it has 1 neck instead of 2 necks on the A5. It has some of the stones here, which Cannonball use on their Pro ones, but it doesn't have them all over it. And there's a little bit less on the engraving as well. So essentially, again, they found a way to fit it into this marketplace, knowing that it's a busy zone. Still has nice things like the double arm keys on the bell notes and on the low C. And it feels like a Cannonball. It's fairly chunky. We should point that out. This is not a light saxophone. But how do you feel on layout and on sound as well?
Well, deal with the sound first. I think it's got a great full sound. I do like the sound of this particular Cannonball. Yeah, I mean, it's again, I think maybe this is a trait of this particular price point of saxophones. The keywork to me doesn't feel quite as comfortable as I want it to. You know, it does feel as if it's perhaps aimed at students, you know, of a certain age, or I don't know. I mean, it is quite heavy as well, which does help with the sound. But yeah, I mean, it's an odd one because perhaps I'm so used to my Yamaha, I'm really set in my ways. But then, you know, I've got a couple of Mark 6s that I find really comfortable to play as well. So I don't think it's particularly that. This just feels a bit kind of odd. I mean, again, going for the E flat, you know, I'm going to go down here, but it's over here. You know what I mean? Which probably would suit someone with a shorter little finger.
It can be arranged. No, but okay, well that's a common thing that's coming out, isn't it? You find that Yamaha layout very easy, and these are all a little different to that. So I think the takeaway is obviously to try things if you can yourself to it, and pay attention when you are testing. You know, don't just look at how pretty it is or even the sound. Think about, can you get around it easily? But we should mention, you did mention it's heavy, and I did want to point that out because it's not heavy in the grand scheme of things, i.e. it's not heavy like a tenor or a baritone.
No.
But it is a little bit more heavy. But I think
a
that's
little weightier. But
some of the bootiness of the sound.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's going to help you get a richer sound. I mean, it's a great horn. It works really well. You know, it's very even across the range. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. And look, just because I play a Yamaha, I don't expect you to play a Yamaha. You know, if you're out there in YouTube land, you know, you've got to try all these different models because everybody has a slightly different idea of what their perfect saxophone is. You know, I'm lucky that, you know, I can get an 875 off the shelf and it pretty much works for me, and that's the saxophone I want to play, and it kind of pleases me. But, you know, it doesn't mean to say that you're going to pick an 875 and go, yes, Simon's right. You know, I don't want to be right. If you see what I mean. I want you to try all these different things and discover for yourself what works for you, because we're all different. You know, it's like me saying, yeah, go on, buy some size 12 hush puppies. That's irrelevant.
Yeah, and I think the market has proliferated now, so there is such a load of choice, and it can be a bit overwhelming, and I think that's why we wanted to do this video as well, was to just let people hear the different ones, get Simon's opinion. I'll throw my opinion in as well. So if you are doing your research, you can at least learn a little bit more about them before you get a chance to blow them. I think in summary, the Cannonballs do have a particular vibe. It's quite booty. I would say it's more along that funky, poppy, jazzy vibe, more than necessarily your classical or your grades to some degree as well. Yeah. But it's a saxophone at the end of the day with the mouthpiece on. You can do whatever you want. But it certainly leans more towards that, you know, bootiness, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, yeah. And there are some great players who play cannonballs. So it's not one of those minority makes that
No.
let's try and sell a few cannonballs. It's they are great horns. And they do have that huge sound, which I think is great. If you're playing lead alto or something, this is going to be a really strong contender for your horn.
Yeah. Cool. I'm just going to show you, this is the hard case. They do actually do a couple of different case versions. Again, this is why I don't like showing cases on videos, because it can vary. But this is the wooden solid version. It's pretty bulky and heavy, but it's very, very protective. They do a lighter weight one as well, and so there is a bit of a choice there. So that's the Cannonball, and as I say, we do a good number of them. I think because there's a couple of finish models, with the black and the unlacquered, and they're just a bit different. And I think either then you like it or you don't like it. But if you like it, you really like it. And if you feel more comfortable on a Yamaha or a Yanagisawa, that's a different kind of school of saxophone, I think, in general
absolutely
terms.
it is, yeah.
So the next one we're going to do is a little bit more of a curveball in that it's a fairly new entrant into the market. We've sold a reasonable number, but it's obviously in a very busy marketplace. But we wanted to have it in here just to throw that curveball in at the end. And that's the Eastman, the 652RL, and we'll be back with that in just a sec. There we go, everyone. So that's the Eastman, and a little bit of background. They started coming out a few years ago now. Actually, they did in the States first, and then they've come into Europe, and dealers have started stocking them. You'll have seen them. Taiwanese production, and that's like a lot of certain brands out there at certain price points. That's not a problem. The company is more important in lots of ways than the country. This is quite an interesting instrument because it has the rolled tone holes, which is not something you find on most models. That is when there's that little ring on top of the normal tone hole, which would be normally a little flatter, shall we say, without that circular dome. That does affect a little bit of the response and the sound, but I wanted to say Bob Mintzer was using the tenor, and that's what kicked the whole Eastman thing off. But let's talk about this alto. What I feel, again, like you're not wholly comfortable on it.
No, I mean,
and that's a layout thing, perhaps.
Again, yeah, layout isn't where I'd want it to be. I'm going to say something really contentious. This feels cheaper.
Okay.
Than, do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel as if it's great quality. I mean, actually, it's straight out the box, and it's quite a humid day, but we've had a problem with sticking keys and things, and maybe that's got something to do with it. But it doesn't feel as quality as the other four saxophones.
Okay. Oh wow, what a bomb you shot on us there.
I'm really sorry about that, because it sounds good.
Yeah,
I think it's got a good core
nice
tone
sound
to it, and it's got kind of quite a nice even tone across it, and it looks great. It's got really quirky engraving there, which I was quite surprised to see. With a 50-second street light and bits, but is that enough? Not for me, really.
Well, it's in a busy zone.
It is, yeah.
And I think, I know people will be watching this. Oh, why didn't you list the blah? Why didn't you sell the blah? I'll tell you, there's a zillion saxophones out there we could sell that we don't bother, because you don't need to worry about them, because there's at least 5 or 6 things that are better than them. And that's the bottom line. We could stock anything, any brand. And we have people sending us stuff all the time. Can you do this? Do you want to do this? And before we take anything on, it goes to the workshop. They give it a thorough look. We want to know where it's from. We want to know the spare parts, the availability, blah, 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 blah. Now, the Eastman, I know what you're saying. Maybe it didn't feel quite as good to you. From our point of view, from a tech point of view, they're good, and they're okay to be at this price point. However, the difficulty they have is they are coming into a very crowded market. Yeah. With lots of things which are very well established, such as the Yamaha, the Yanagisawa, even the Cannonball in a different way, because they've been around a lot longer and have got that footprint now in the market. So I'm kind of with you, and I'm not here to say, am I? But I'm kind of with you in that I think it's a good saxophone, but I don't know if it's good enough when it's up against these things.
Yeah,
but maybe someone would come in and blow it and go,
absolutely,
I love it.
Yeah. I'm not going to rate them. I'm not going to give you this is the best and this is the worst. I think you'd probably know which one I prefer because I've been quite vocal about it. But yeah, as I say, it's a shame because, you know, when I get a saxophone out and play it, I want to be excited by it. And really, I'm not by this. It's kind of, there's great features on it, you know, and it looks fantastic, and the unlacquered bit. But for me, it's kind of like, oh, it's a letdown.
It's not quite clicking for whatever reason, is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And this is it, people. If you get to, certainly if you get to Dorks, or, you know, you may be watching this abroad and you can't do that, whatever, we can mail order. But if you go to your local store, wherever you're trying out some saxophones, you have to have that feeling. It may be you walk in, you pick up the 3 or 4 of the 5 we've tried here, and this one does grab you, or the Yanagisawa grabs you, or whatever. That's the point. And actually, Simon mentioned something just off camera. You know, at this point, you should be coming to the test knowing what you're trying to get from a saxophone to some degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Understanding of your sound, of your concept of how you play, and about getting around it, what you feel comfortable, what you don't feel. So that's something we always ask people. What are you looking for? You know, what sort of saxophone players you like listening to? What sort of music do you play, etc., etc. So anyway, this is, I just want to point out, this is the Eastman case. It's perfectly nice. Again, it's fairly big, bulky, but with that you get a lot of space for bits and bobs in the front and
It's a nice
straps.
looking case, actually.
Yeah.
Things at the back, sweat absorbers and all sorts.
Very padded.
Yeah.
Yes.
Headphone sockets and
all sorts of gadgetry.
Very high tech.
Very high tech. So again, we're not picking on this one per se, but there are a myriad of things out there, and always think about all the boring stuff that I said. Is, can I resell it? What's it going to be worth in the future? Can I get spare parts if I need them? Will the shop I'm buying it from set it up properly? Will they look after me if it needs an adjustment or anything like that? And obviously with Dorks, we're going to take care of all that for you. But hopefully you found this interesting just to hear 5 different things. And Simon, for you to get reacquainted with a couple of the other things in the market. It's been good. So I think we know what you would choose. And I'm not going to ask you to say it. I know what I would choose, and I'm not going to say it. But I think any of them, you can't go too far wrong. They would all do a job for you.
No, but I mean, this is the thing, you know, that actually at the end of the day, it's what works for you that's important rather than, you know, I can tell you what I prefer, but, you know, you prefer a different saxophone. So, you know, that is the you know, the wonder of what we do, you know, that not everybody's going to like the same thing. No,
and if you're somewhere and you can't get to a shop, you can't try them all out, that becomes a little bit more difficult because you're going to need to take the advice, so you're going to need to watch the videos, you're going to need to do some research. I would say in that instance, I'm not going to say any particular saxophone, but just make sure the place you're buying it from is going to help you get it set up properly, and and I would say play safe if you're in that and you can't test them. Play safe and get something that a vast majority of people have already bought, know works, and is going to be good for you. End of the day, you've got to do more practice. That's what it all comes down to, isn't it? I mean, that's the bottom line. Do more, buy a decent sax, decent mouthpiece, and do a load of practice. And the rest is history. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Simon. We will leave it there for today. Well done if you've made it to the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back with you very soon.
We will.